On this episode, the Central Alberta Sexual Assault Centre.
I'm not going to fluff up sexual assault to try to make it more palatable for people.
Often, small towns are thought of as wholesome places to live, away from the crime often associated with big cities. But on this episode of Sherwood Dodge Road to Hope, we travel to Central Alberta, where we meet up with a sexual assault worker who's traveling to rural schools to teach them that anywhere, at any place, sexual assault can happen.
I don't pull any punches with these kids. I have been accused of being as subtle as a train wreck. What those girls did to her was beyond mean. It was evil. I tell them the truth, and the truth is ugly. And I have had some teachers who've talked to me after saying, well, you know, that was pretty strong. And I look at them and I go, yeah, I'm not going to fluff up sexual assault to try to make it more palatable for people. I tell them what it is. And it's interesting because the vast majority of teachers are now booking me a year in advance because they want the kids to hear the truth. Have I lost one or two schools over the last 9 years? Absolutely. Am I going to change how I present to suit a particular teacher who's uncomfortable with it? Absolutely not. You know, when you work with the victims and you see the pain that they go through, I would be doing them a disservice. You harass someone at work sexually, you will be fired. We're a nonprofit agency that exists to help people, male or female, from age 4 up to 94 or older, who have been sexually harassed or sexually assaulted, and they want to deal with the emotional pain that they're going through. You would be handcuffed, taken down to the police station, fingerprinted and photographed because I would demand to have you charged. I was an RCMP member in the province of Alberta for 24 years. I did a lot of sexual assault investigations. I was blessed in the last couple of years of my career because I was a high school resource officer for the 3 high schools in Red Deer. 90% of the time, attending schools or community groups and talking about sexual harassment, sexual assault, internet safety, because some of it does deal with some of the pornography and that's going on. And 10% is working with the counselors here because they use my policing background to try to understand how investigations take place. If that person wanted to, they could charge you with sexual harassment. I was doing a lot of sexual assault investigations in the detachments where I was at, and I have to admit it was kind of burning me out a little bit. And I remember talking to my mom, who lives in a different province, and she said to me one day, she said, you know, you're doing a lot of good. Don't stop what you're doing. And I flippantly said, well, how would you know? And she said, because I was sexually assaulted as a little girl. And that's when the big family secret came out that her dad had sexually abused her from her earliest memory up until age 15. And it really set me back on my heels. So I like to say I'm doing this to kind of pay back for the bad that he did, because she didn't deserve that. Sexual assault has not disappeared. It's always been there. Unfortunately, will most likely always be there. It's just now the victims are feeling more comfortable about coming in, and I'd like to believe that part of that is because we're getting out in the communities, we're talking about it, and that they're starting to learn that there's actually a place to come in and help them.
I was sexually abused by my stepdad for just shy of a decade. It started about a year after he married my mom, right after my younger brother was born. I've since learned the term grooming. Of course, when you're a kid, you don't know what on earth that is, but it was a progressive push forward into sort of things that became more and more inappropriate. So it started with him tucking me in at night and giving me a back rub and reading me the entire series of Little House on the Prairie, and proceeded to from there to digitally penetrate, and it just got more and more abusive sort of as time went on. The first time that he like fully vaginally sexually assaulted me, I was 13 years old. The first time that he fully anally sexually assaulted me, I was 14, and it just proceeded to get worse from there until I reported him when I was 19. It was at the request of my counselor. They were having some sort of a luncheon, and they wanted the testimony of a couple of survivors. So she'd asked me to write something up, and I wrote something up, and it went over fairly well. And Ralph came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, you're really good at this. Is it something that you're interested in doing more of?" I'm like, "Yep, you find me opportunities and I will show up."
I just knew at that point in time that she was a gift from God in regards to getting out there and talking to people and seeing what a person has gone through. Well, here, ask them. You know, she'll tell you what she's gone through, and it's extremely painful for her. But she realizes that if it helps someone become better at their job, dealing with someone else, then she's prepared to go through that pain.
Ralph knows my story probably better than anyone, because every time you tell it, you know, there's sort of different key points, and it's kind of hard to condense 10 years into 10 minutes or 15 minutes or even an hour, because there's a lot of material to cover. So we have a really interesting dynamic where he can sort of, you know, ask the questions or push me in the right direction. If he thinks that this particular audience, you know, needs this piece of my story, he'll pull it out and be like, "This is the part you need to talk about." So I mean, that's really useful, because he's you know, especially with his previous RCMP experience, you know, he's got a really good feel for people, and because he is setting up these talks and stuff, he knows what they need.
I get to go out and meet all these awesome young people. I learn from them every time I go into a class. And it's interesting because I can pick up warning signs that there's a child or a young person who has been sexually assaulted. And what's been great is I've been able to, at the end of the day, go up to the counselors and say, you know, the young person who was sitting here, I've got some real concerns. So to be able to take what I learned as a police officer about reading people and then being able to use it in the classrooms, not only being able to talk about it, but in some cases actually being able to pick out the people who are in distress. We're getting more and more requests the more schools that we're going into, especially in the small towns. They're just thrilled, and it's great because there's a lot of bad happening everywhere. There's this attitude that if you live in a small town, it's like everything's fine and everything's wonderful. Some of the worst sexual offenses I ever investigated were in towns under 1,000 people. So it's happening, and these kids want to talk about it.
He has taught me a lot about being a good person, actually. And he's taught me that even if it's hard, you know, it's important to talk about the ugly bits, because that's what has an impact on people, and that's what they take away from it. You know, they don't necessarily remember, you know, if there's a fairy tale ending, that's not the important part. That's not what resonates with people. It's grit, and it's determination, and it's pushing through, and it's getting there. Ralph is honestly one of my favorite human beings. He's really caring, and he's really passionate about what he does, and he knows that he's making a difference in the world, and I think that's what drives him, is helping other people. And you know, there aren't actually that many people out there that are that genuine and that caring and who are actually out to make a difference.
And she said, "I'm being sexually harassed in my class." And the first thought came to my mind was, okay, what are the boys saying? But see, that was very unfair of me, because it wasn't the boys who were sexually harassing her, it was the girls. It's really this new generation that I'm talking to that will make a huge change, because the generations before, it was the big dark family secret and nobody wanted to talk about it.
If I can survive this, you can survive whatever it is that you're dealing with right now. I think it's important to get that out there. I think it's something that isn't discussed enough. And other than that, I mean, I think it's important for them to know that the help is there, and places like the Central Alberta Sexual Assault Support Center, do exist and are available. It's a safe place and it's a valuable place.
If there's anyone out there, and unfortunately there's more than I want to believe, that has been abused, whether it's happened once or whether it's happened 1,000 times, you didn't do anything to cause it to happen. It was not your fault. You didn't deserve to be treated that way.
I think that it's important that, you know, if you're dealing with sort of the emotional and psychological issues that surround sexual abuse or sexual assault, that you avail yourself of this resource. They take their confidentiality seriously and they will help you.
And when you're ready to deal with the emotional pain, just know that we care. And there are people here who will help you work through this, and you will come out on the other end incredibly strong. So don't feel that you have to deal with this on your own, because you don't.
In the last quarter of 2014, the Central Alberta Sexual Assault Centre saw over 100 cases, with 49 of those being children. If you are able to give back to this organization, please follow the information on your screen. Thanks so much for watching. I've been your host, Bianca Jade.